Welcome to the Human Archive. If you enjoy original science fiction stories about humanity finding its place among the stars, subscribe and join us for the next one. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The room went quiet. Commander Rulvek Saan had tolerated the animal for 43 minutes before it became a problem. The humans called it grit. It was lean, dark-faced, and restless in the controlled way of a creature that had been taught exactly how much energy it was permitted to spend. Its ears moved constantly. Its nose moved more. The dog wore a working harness marked with human military insignia and a block of text the station translator rendered as explosives detection, "Do not distract." Rulvek had read the warning. He had not considered it necessary. Vantage Spire possessed chemical sniffers capable of detecting vapor signatures at concentrations too low for most Federation species to perceive. It had drones that could map a room in seconds, sensors tied into the station's ventilation system, and a forensic lab that could identify energetic compounds from particles smaller than a grain of dust. The humans had brought a mammal. Rulvek had not objected. Earth had been invited to contribute specialist security personnel after intelligence services intercepted a credible sabotage threat 3 days before the transit summit. The humans had sent Captain Bethany Crawl, 6 military police officers, 2 bomb technicians, and Sergeant Brynn Halstead with her dog. Odd, perhaps, but odd was not disqualifying. The security briefing was nearly complete when Grit crossed behind Rulvek's chair and stopped beside his command case. The dog's posture changed. Rulvek noticed because Brynn noticed. Until then she had moved with the loose attentiveness of someone letting the animal work. Now she became still. Grit lowered his nose toward the case handle, drew in a short breath, then sat. He stared at the handle. Brynn's expression hardened. "Alert," she said. The room shifted immediately into procedure. No one panicked. Rulvek appreciated that. He stepped back while station technicians passed a portable scanner over the case. The device sampled vapor, surface chemistry, thermal anomalies, hidden power sources, and several known explosive families. Nothing. A second sweep found nothing. The technician looked toward Rulvek. "Case is clean." Rulvek nodded, "Then continue." Brynn did not move. Grit remained seated, eyes fixed on the handle. Rulvek looked at her. "Remove the animal." "He's still indicating." "The scan is negative." "I heard it." Rulvek disliked the tone less than the refusal. "This is a secure command briefing, Sergeant." "The case has been cleared." Brynn crouched slightly beside Grit, not touching him, watching him work. "He's not alerting to the case. He's alerting to something on it." "That distinction is irrelevant if there is no threat." Brynn looked up, not to him. Rulvek reached for the handle. Grit stood and followed his hand. The dog nosed the edge of the case, then sat again. Rulvek's patience ended. He had commanded boarding teams under fire. He had arrested armed smugglers. He had spent 28 years inside military systems where an order mattered because hesitation got people killed. An animal did not get to interrupt that structure because it had developed an opinion about luggage. He caught Grit by the harness strap and shoved him away. The dog twisted back toward the case. Rulvek struck him once across the shoulder with the flat of his gauntleted hand. It was not, by Dameron standards, a brutal blow. It was correction. Grit yelped. The sound was small. The silence that followed was not. One of the human officers had been sliding a tablet across the table. His hand stopped halfway. Another had been speaking quietly to a station technician. The sentence ended unfinished. Captain Bethany Crawl turned her head toward Rulvek. 2 human security officers stood. Nobody reached for a weapon. The restraint unsettled him more than shouting would have. Brynn was already on the floor beside Grit. Her entire attention went to the dog. She ran both hands along his shoulder and ribs, checking with controlled pressure. She watched his breathing, then coaxed him to stand and took 2 slow steps with him. Grit favored the struck side for only a moment before putting weight on it again. Rulvek expected fury. Instead, Brynn kept working. That unnerved him. Bethany spoke without raising her voice. "Commander, step away from the dog." Rulvek looked at her. The room had changed. Every human face had. Their expressions did not turn to rage. They became colder. He had seen troops prepare for violence before. He knew what readiness looked like when it entered muscle and posture. This was not quite that. This was 14 humans reaching the same conclusion at once. He stepped back. Brynn finished checking Grit and finally looked up at him. Her face was calm. Rulvek understood, with a delay he would later remember in detail, that the calm was not forgiveness. It was triage. Chapter 2. Partners. The veterinary scan showed bruising and soft tissue inflammation along Grit's shoulder. No fracture, no internal injury. Rulvek considered that fortunate. The humans did not appear comforted by his relief. He was summoned to a joint incident review less than an hour later. Grit was in the adjacent treatment room with Brynn. Through the transparent partition, Rulvek could see the dog lying on a padded mat while a human medic ran a cooling field over the shoulder. Bethany sat across from Rulvek. Her posture was professional. Her expression was not friendly. "You struck a member of my security team during an active operation." Rulvek resisted the urge to correct her immediately. It lasted less than a second. "It is an animal." Brynn had entered quietly behind Bethany. She stopped by the wall, arms folded. "He knows," she said. Rulvek turned toward her. The answer made no sense. "Then why are you treating this as an assault on personnel?" Brynn looked at him for a long moment before she replied. "Because you hit my partner." Rulvek looked through the partition at Grit. Rulvek looked back toward Grit. The dog had lifted his head at the sound of Brynn's voice. He watched her through the partition. Partner. Rulvek had expected humans to use sentimental language. They attached names to machines, decorated weapons, apologized to malfunctioning equipment. He had observed a human engineer pat a reactor housing after repairs, but Bethany was not sentimental. Neither was Brynn. This was administrative language. Operational language. Rulvek clasped his hands behind his back. Federation military law does not grant personnel status to non-sapient organisms. Human regulations grant protected working status, Bethany replied. And under the Joint Security Compact, the handler retains operational control unless station command can establish immediate hazard. The dog interfered with cleared equipment. Brynn's eyes sharpened. He alerted. The case was clean. The scanner said the case didn't contain a bomb. Rulvek heard the distinction now. He did not like it. Bethany placed an incident notice on the table. Until review is complete, your authority over the human K-9 team is suspended. Rulvek stared at the notice. I am Chief Security Officer of this station. You still are. You do not have direct command over Sergeant Halstead or Grit. The reprimand landed harder than he expected, not because it threatened his career, because it changed command in the middle of an active threat. His own action had done that. Rulvek looked through the partition again. Brynn went to Grit. The dog stood despite the bruise. She checked his gait, rewarded him with a small piece of food, then made him lie down again. There was affection in the motion. There was also discipline. Rulvek did not know what to do with the combination. Before leaving, he paused at the door. I did not intend serious harm. Brynn did not soften. You didn't need to understand our relationship to keep your hands off him. Rulvek had no answer. The door closed behind him. For the first time since the sabotage threat began, he found himself thinking less about explosives than about a dog. Then the forensic team called. They had dismantled his command case. The dog had not been wrong. Chapter 3. A false alert. There was no explosive inside the case. There was no detonator, power source, pressure sensor, concealed cavity, or explosive inside. Rulvek stood over the disassembled components while a forensic specialist displayed the results. At first we thought the K-9 alert had no basis, the specialist said. Then Captain Krall requested trace analysis of the exterior. Rulvek glanced at Bethany. She did not look pleased to be correct. The specialist enlarged a chemical graph. We found residue on the handle. Rulvek leaned closer. Quantity. Microscopic, far below threat threshold. Compound. An industrial energetic binder, commonly used in demolition charges. Rulvek felt the room narrow. My case has never been in demolition storage. We checked the access log, confirmed. Brynn stood near the door without Grit. Rulvek looked at her. Would he alert at that concentration? Brynn did not answer immediately. He suspected she was deciding whether he deserved one. Yes, she said finally. Depending on the odor profile and what else was on the handle. The scanner did not. The scanner was looking for a threat package. Grit was looking for odor. Rulvek understood the distinction. A machine had answered the question it was designed to answer. The dog had answered another. Rulvek's command case was not dangerous. It had been near something that was, or handled by someone who had. Security analytics pulled the locker records. No authorized access appeared outside Rulvek's own. That should have reassured him. It did not. A 12-second interruption existed in the local monitoring archive 6 hours earlier. Not a camera failure, a data gap. The interruption was short, clean, and professional. Rulvek stared at the timeline. The extremists have access inside command security. Bethany nodded, or someone wants us to think they do. The investigation shifted from weapons to access. Until then, the station had been searching for weapons. Now they were searching for access. Rulvek ordered a review of all senior equipment lockers, maintenance personnel with proximity to secure storage, and every cargo route crossing the demolition material chain. Then he hesitated, a habit he disliked. His eyes went to Brynn. "Your dog identified this before our systems did." She nodded. Brynn showed no triumph and made no accusation, which made Rulvek feel worse. How soon can he return? Not yet. Rulvek looked at the trace graph. The animal he had struck for disobedience had been doing exactly what Grit had been trained to do. Rulvek had not merely misread a cultural practice. He had interfered with an active investigation. That fact followed him out of the laboratory. Chapter 4. The Hand That Fed the Wolf. Rulvek did not intend to visit the veterinary bay. He went because security review required an update on Grit's condition. That was what he told himself. Brynn was sitting on the floor when he arrived. Grit lay between her knees. The dog's head rested against her thigh while she checked the bruised shoulder again. Afterward, she made him stand, walk a short line, turn, and return. Then she produced a red rubber cylinder from a storage bag. The change in the dog was immediate. Grit's ears rose, his whole body tightened. Brynn tossed the toy once. The dog caught it. For the next several seconds, the highly trained explosives detection specialist became completely absorbed in possessing a piece of rubber. Rulvek found this absurd. Brynn noticed him watching. He likes getting paid. That is compensation. Pretty much. Rulvek stared at Grit, who was now chewing the toy with focused enthusiasm. You reward security work with this. It's what he wants. He does not understand the importance of the mission. No. He does not understand sabotage. No. He does not understand Federation law. Brynn's mouth twitched. Neither do half the humans on this station. Rulvek almost smiled. He did not. His gaze returned to the dog. Then why trust him? Brynn took the toy back. Grit surrendered it immediately and sat. Because sometimes he knows something I don't. Rulvek considered the answer. Among the Damarin, trust followed competence and accountability. Both required sapience. You trusted an officer because he understood the mission. You trusted a system because engineers could explain it. You trusted a weapon because its tolerances were known. Grit had no concept of command doctrine, yet Brynn trusted the animal to tell her when her own senses were insufficient. How long have humans done this? With dogs? Yes. A very long time. She scratched Grit behind one ear. Hunting first, probably. Guarding, herding, finding people, detecting things, pulling loads, fighting beside us, sleeping beside us. Rulvek's translator offered multiple cultural equivalents for the last phrase. None fit well. You turned predators into coworkers. Brynn looked amused. They helped. The answer stayed with him. It implied choice where he expected conditioning, partnership where he expected use. Grit nudged Brynn's hand. She gave the toy back. Rulvek watched the dog settle with it. A weapon detector, a security asset. A household companion, an animal delighted by rubber. He still did not understand, but he had stopped believing there was nothing to understand. Chapter 5. Trace. The residue on Rulvek's case matched stock held in Vantage Spire's engineering demolition bay. That narrowed nothing. The material was common in station maintenance. It was also tightly controlled. Rulvek's case had never entered the engineering sector. Someone had brought the residue to him. Security analytics found the first useful anomaly near his equipment locker. A maintenance cart passed the secure corridor 20 minutes before the monitoring gap. The cart was authorized and routine. Its assigned technician had legitimate clearance. The technician also had an alibi during the 12-second interruption. The cart did not. Rulvek reviewed the path. Remote access. Bethany studied the same data. Possible. Or another person with copied credentials. Also possible. Rulvek's jaw tightened. Copied command-level credentials were not supposed to be possible without biometric confirmation. Bethany looked at him. Supposed to be. Rulvek disliked the question because it was fair. They widened the audit. Nothing dramatic emerged, no hidden saboteur and no suspicious weapons. What appeared instead was a pattern of tiny access irregularities. A door opened 3 seconds longer than expected. A locker control requested authentication twice. A maintenance terminal logged a credential handshake that should have been cached. Individually, the irregularities meant little. Together, they were troubling. Rulvek thought of the trace on his handle. The case had never been the target. It was a breadcrumb. Someone inside the station's systems had touched his equipment after handling demolition material, or wanted him to think they had. Either possibility forced them to widen the investigation. He ordered all security teams to stop searching solely for assembled devices. They would now review movement of precursor materials, credentials, maintenance equipment, and restricted access. Station security complied. The humans added chemical trace mapping. Brynn added one request. When Grit comes back, I want maintenance routes. Rulvek looked at her. Why those? Because whoever did this is living inside normal traffic. The saboteurs did not need to smuggle a bomb through security if they could move harmless components through legitimate channels. Rulvek approved the search, then remembered he no longer had authority over the K-9 team. He amended the order. Request noted. Coordinate with Captain Crawl. Brynn's eyes flicked toward him. It was the first time he saw surprise replace anger. Brynn noticed the correction. It was not forgiveness. Chapter 6. The price of the strike. Grit remained restricted to light duty for another 12 hours. The timing was bad. A maintenance shipment arrived from Dock Ring 3 during the K-9 restriction. Federation sensors inspected it. So did human bomb technicians. No threat was found. The cargo passed. 3 hours later, human chemists reviewing the trace map found a problem. One lubricant reservoir contained an industrial precursor from the same chemical family as the residue on Rulvek's case. The precursor was legal, common, below the hazard threshold, and already inside the station. Rulvek stood in the operations room while the cargo route replayed across the display. No violation at the checkpoint. Correct, Bethany said. No assembled explosive. Correct. No forbidden concentration. Correct. Rulvek looked at her. So the shipment passed because there was nothing to stop. There was nothing the system was designed to stop. He did not like the distinction anymore. Brynn stood farther back in the operations room, listening. Grit was absent. Rulvek kept noticing the empty space where Grit should have been. Rulvek asked, would the dog have indicated? Brynn answered carefully. Maybe. Depends on odor, contamination, packaging, airflow. He's not magic. But he might have. Yes. Rulvek stared at the route display. Rulvek stared at the route display and understood what his strike had cost the investigation. The cost was no longer theoretical, not emotional. A sensory capability had been removed from service during an active sabotage investigation. The humans did not say it. No one needed to say it aloud. Rulvek dismissed the room except for Brynn. She stayed by the door. I need Grit back. Her expression changed instantly. He's hurt. He is medically cleared for light work. You read the report? I did. Then you also read the part where pain and fatigue affect detection performance. Yes. Brynn studied him. Joint Command gave him enough authority to make trouble even after the suspension. He looked at her. I am asking for your cooperation. Brynn's gaze remained hard. If he comes back, he works under my authority. Nobody touches him without my permission unless it's a medical emergency. If he alerts, we investigate before anyone decides he's wrong. Rulvek nodded, agreed. She waited. He knew what else was required. I should not have struck him. Brynn said nothing. Rulvek continued because the first sentence felt too easy. I mistook persistence for disorder. The alert was valid. My action interfered with your work. Still nothing. I am sorry. Brynn's face softened by almost nothing. Good, she said. Then she opened the door. Now earn the rest. Chapter 7. Ask the handler. Grit returned wearing a lighter harness. The bruise had not disappeared. Brynn adjusted his work intervals because of it. Brynn limited Grit to 10-minute searches followed by rest, water, and shorter routes. Rulvek noticed how often she stopped him before the dog asked. He had assumed handlers drove animals until performance failed. Brynn managed Grit the way a good commander managed troops. That comparison made him uncomfortable. The first maintenance sweep found nothing. The second produced two weak indications that led to harmless industrial residue. Rulvek did not overreact. Neither did Brynn. They logged both. On the third sweep, Grit stopped beside a cargo tug. The tug had passed 2 electronic inspections that morning. He circled it once, nose working, then sat near the rear service housing. Brynn marked the alert. Technicians dismantled the housing. Nothing. Rulvek looked at Brynn. She frowned, not at him, but at Grit. The dog remained interested. Grit was not frantic. He was certain. Brynn asked the tug chief where the machine had last been serviced, a maintenance bay 2 levels below. They went there. Grit ignored the tug parts, then led Brynn toward a bank of lubricant reservoirs. The first reservoir tested clean. The second contained legal thermal transfer fluid. The third produced another weak canine indication. Electronic analysis found nothing explosive. Brynn did not argue. She asked for composition. 2 precursor compounds were present in physically separated compartments. Both compounds had legitimate industrial uses, and neither was dangerous alone. Rulvek felt the shape of the plan before the chemist finished speaking. Combined. The chemist looked grim. With a third material already used in life support sealant, they can produce an energetic mixture. Bethany folded her arms. So nobody smuggled a bomb aboard. They smuggled ingredients, Rulvek said, and planned to build the weapon inside the perimeter. Everyone looked at the dog. Grit was sitting beside Brynn, waiting for his reward. She gave him the red rubber toy. Rulvek watched him seize it with joy. Rulvek no longer found the red toy absurd. Grit had still found the danger. Chapter 8. The thing the machines missed. The discovery changed the investigation. Security teams traced the movement of precursor materials through maintenance schedules. Federation systems excelled once they knew what pattern to seek. Cargo histories unraveled. Access anomalies linked. 2 compromised storage nodes were identified within 6 hours. The saboteurs had done their work carefully, not perfectly. Rulvek began assigning canine sweeps where uncertainty remained, but Brynn refused broad searches. Too much area, she told him. He'll burn out. Rulvek looked at the station map. We have 12 sectors with possible precursor exposure. Then narrow them with your systems first. He almost said the dog had succeeded where the systems failed, then stopped himself. That was not what had happened. The systems had found what they were designed to find. Grit had found something else. They were 2 different detection systems. Each had strengths the other lacked. Rulvek changed the plan. Station analytics would identify likely assembly zones based on power, access, ventilation, and maintenance anomalies. Grit would search the highest probability locations. Used together, they found what either method could miss. They found a hidden mixing assembly in a coolant service chamber. The chamber was empty, prepared, and waiting for material. A second chamber contained wiring. There was no explosive there yet. The team was close. Then the saboteurs learned. The first sign was a maintenance leak in Sector 9. Harmless industrial solvent entered the ventilation system, then another, then a cleaning compound. Within an hour, several maintenance corridors smelled strongly enough that even Rulvek could detect the haze. Brynn brought Grit to the threshold. The dog sneezed, worked for less than a minute, then looked back at her. She ended the search. Rulvek frowned. He cannot continue. He can, he'll just get less reliable. Then we do not use him there. Brynn looked at him. Brynn's expression showed approval. The approval was small but real. The sabotage team had begun shaping the environment around Grit's nose. Rulvek increased protection around the K9 team without announcing why. Brynn noticed anyway. You think they'll come after him? I think they are adapting. She nodded, so are we. For the first time, Rulvek heard the word we and understood that he was included. Chapter 9. The enemy learns. The mixed detection strategy kept producing leads. It did not work cleanly. 3 alerts led nowhere useful. 1 drone found a concealed wiring conduit Grit had ignored. Station analytics identified a false maintenance identity that human investigators initially dismissed. Every method missed something. Each method covered failures in the other. The saboteurs reacted by accelerating their timetable. Rulvek inferred it from traffic. Unauthorized maintenance activity increased. Power requests appeared in odd places. A credential tied to a dead subcontractor accessed an internal map. The summit was supposed to move into its final session the next morning. Rulvek requested postponement. The diplomatic chair refused. Too many governments had traveled too far. Postponement itself could fracture negotiations. Rulvek hated political constraints. Security would tighten. Delegates would remain inside the protected sector. All new cargo would stop. Internal maintenance would require paired authorization. Bethany added human teams to choke points. Brynn reduced Grit's workload further. "You're holding him back," Rulvek observed. "I'm keeping him useful." "He appears eager." "He's always eager." Grit sat beside her, eyes fixed on the toy clipped to her belt. Rulvek believed her. That evening the dog slept beneath Brynn's chair during briefing. Rulvek found the sight strangely reassuring. The same animal that had uncovered the sabotage network snored quietly through a discussion of emergency evacuation routes. The first explosion came 2 hours later. Chapter 10. The Safe Corridor. The blast struck an unmanned systems compartment beneath the summit hall. The first blast caused no casualties and minimal structural damage, exactly enough to trigger emergency protocol. Alarms filled Vantage Spire. Rulvek was moving before the first status report finished. "Evacuation Pattern 3, he ordered. "Hardened shelters on the inner ring." The primary corridor had been designed for exactly this kind of evacuation. The corridor was wide, armored, and covered by automatic defenses. Federation sensors declared it clear. Rulvek directed the first delegation toward it. Grit reached the entrance and stopped. He sat. Brynn did not speak. Rulvek saw the dog's posture, the same stillness as beside his command case. For 1 second, old instinct returned. The corridor was clean. Hundreds of lives needed to move. Every delay increased exposure. The dog had already produced false or irrelevant alerts elsewhere. Rulvek looked at Brynn. She did not argue. She did not remind him of the briefing room. She waited. Everyone waited for Rulvek's order. Rulvek closed the corridor. "Redirect to Pattern 5, bomb team forward." The station chief stared at him. "Pattern 5 adds 6 minutes. "Do it." The bomb team found the secondary device behind structural shielding 30 meters from the shelter entrance. It was incomplete, but armed enough to kill anyone in the corridor. The first explosion had been bait. The evacuation route was the kill zone. Rulvek stood in the command room while the device image filled the display. Silence spread around him. This silence felt different from the one after he struck Grit. This time everyone understood what the dog had prevented. Several humans looked toward Grit. The dog was drinking water from a collapsible bowl. Rulvek felt something heavy settle in his chest. He had struck that animal for refusing to ignore what his own senses could not detect. Now the same refusal had just saved most of the diplomatic assembly. He turned toward Brynn. She was checking the dog's shoulder. Brynn checked the bruised shoulder again. She checked Grit before anything else. Only then did Rulvek understand Brynn's order of priorities. He had simply failed to recognize them. Chapter 11. The line moves. The alternate evacuation route led through a less protected maintenance transit. That was the price of avoiding the bomb. Rulvek knew it. So did the saboteurs. The first attackers emerged from a service hatch 2 corridors ahead. Federation security fired first. The transit filled with weapons fire, alarms, and the sharp metallic smell of scorched paneling. Rulvek pushed the delegate column behind a reinforced bulkhead while Bethany's officers took the flank. Brynn kept Grit low and close. His job had not changed. Find the next device. The attackers understood that. One of them saw the harness. Rulvek saw the moment recognition happened. The attacker shifted his weapon away from Bethany and toward the dog. Brynn moved before Rulvek could shout. She crossed the distance in 3 steps. One hand hit the weapon barrel and drove it aside. The shot struck the ceiling. Her shoulder slammed into the attacker's chest. He hit the wall hard enough to lose balance. Brynn trapped his weapon arm against the panel, twisted, and stripped the gun free. The attacker tried to recover. She drove him to the deck. He stopped resisting. Brynn stopped hurting him. Immediately, she kicked the weapon away, turned her back on the man, and dropped beside Grit. Her hands ran over his chest and legs. Grit had no wound and no blood on him. The entire violence had taken seconds. Rulvek stared. The scene flashed him back to the briefing room. The humans' restraint had not been helplessness. They had possessed the capacity for violence. They had chosen not to use it. Brynn had responded with frightening efficiency. Then she returned to the dog. It meant they had been disciplined enough not to escalate once the threat ended. Chapter 12. A different kind of soldier. The evacuees reached a temporary safe zone inside the commercial spine. They had 12 minutes before security moved them again. Rulvek found Brynn beside Grit. The dog was panting hard. Smoke had irritated his eyes. Brynn wiped them with sterile solution and checked the bruised shoulder. Rulvek stood nearby until she noticed him. You need something. He hesitated. The question felt foolish after everything. When the attacker aimed at him, you reacted faster than when they aimed at you. Brynn sat back on her heels. He trusts me to notice. Rulvek waited. Brynn said nothing more. Rulvek understood. Grit could not understand every danger on Vantage Spire. He did not know why the corridors shook. He did not know what a firearm was designed to do. He did not know that people were trying to assassinate diplomats. He went where Brynn asked anyway. Into strange rooms, past loud machinery, through smoke, near explosives. Because she asked, and because somewhere inside the animal mind Rulvek had dismissed, there was an expectation that she would not betray that trust. Rulvek looked at Grit. Grit leaned against Brynn's leg. The trust between them needed no language. Rulvek thought of his hand striking the dog. The memory of striking Grit returned with new weight. It had been wrong when he did it. Now he understood the violation more fully. He opened his mouth. Brynn looked at him. Rulvek said, "I did not understand your relationship." Her expression remained steady. You didn't need to understand it to keep your hands off him. Rulvek accepted that. Before he could answer, another explosion tore through the station. The floor jumped. The lights died. The ceiling came down. Chapter 13. Missing. Rulvek woke beneath metal. For several seconds he could not breathe properly. Then pain arrived. His left leg was trapped under a collapsed conduit frame. His chest armor had taken the worst of the impact, but one side had cracked. Smoke filled the service section. Emergency lights pulsed weakly through it. His transponder showed fault. He tried the comm. Static. Rulvek assessed. His leg was trapped, but there was no severe arterial bleeding. He could still breathe. A fire burned somewhere nearby and the structure remained unstable. Rulvek tried to lift the conduit. It did not move. The first rescue drone arrived 9 minutes later. He heard it before he saw it. A small light appeared through the smoke, then stopped. Debris blocked the route. The drone scanned. Rulvek tried to signal. Its map could not resolve his exact position through overlapping metal and damaged power conduits. It withdrew to find another path. Rulvek did not panic. He had spent decades training not to. He simply began calculating how long the air would remain breathable. Elsewhere in the station, Brynn received his last known location. Rulvek did not know that. He did not know she had already searched one damaged corridor. He did not know Grit was exhausted. He did not know the dog's shoulder had begun swelling again. He only knew the smoke was getting thicker. Then faintly he heard something, scratching. He thought at first it was collapsing metal. Then it came again, claws on deck plating. Rulvek stopped breathing. Shape appeared through the smoke. A low, dark shape moved quickly through the smoke. Grit. The dog entered the recess, nose working. He found Rulvek, sniffed his chest armor, then barked once and turned toward the corridor. Rulvek laughed. It hurt. Of all beings on Vantage Spire, the creature he had struck was the one that came through the smoke first. He reached toward Grit. His hand stopped halfway. Rulvek did not know why, not consciously. He simply remembered Brynn's rule. Nobody touches him without permission. He let the hand hang still. Grit stayed. A moment later, Brynn's voice came through the smoke. "Good boy, show me." Rulvek closed his eyes. He had never been so relieved to hear a human. Chapter 14. He came back. Brynn reached him with 2 Federation rescue drones and a structural engineer. She was limping slightly from the earlier fight. Grit's breathing was harsh. Nobody wasted time discussing either injury. The drones mapped load-bearing stress around the trapped conduit. The engineer identified the safest cut points. Brynn kept Grit back while rescue tools came forward. Rulvek watched the dog. "He found me." Brynn glanced at him. That's his job. There was no sentiment in the answer. That made it stronger. The rescue team lifted the conduit enough to pull Rulvek's leg free. Pain flared white. He nearly blacked out. Brynn caught his shoulder. "Stay with me." Rulvek looked toward Grit. The dog stood several meters away, watching. Smoke streaked his coat. His ears were up. His tail moved once when Brynn looked at him. Rulvek said he should not have been working. Brynn's face tightened. No. Then why was he? She did not answer immediately. When I presented the harness, he put his head into it. Rulvek frowned through the pain. You let him decide. As much as a dog can. Brynn had chosen the wording carefully. She was not pretending Grit reasoned like a human. The choice was simpler than that. He recognized the harness, the routine, and the work that followed. Grit knew what the harness meant. The harness meant work, searching, and going with Brynn. He had chosen it. Rulvek looked at the dog again. The rescue team moved them towards safety. Grit followed. Vantage Spire was still under attack. The sabotage operation had not ended, but something in Rulvek had. He no longer believed trust required the ability to explain itself. Chapter 15. The Partner. The final security action lasted another 3 hours. Rulvek spent most of it in medical containment with a fractured lower leg and 2 cracked ribs. He hated being away from command. He hated the helplessness more. Bethany updated him anyway. The saboteurs had lost their precursor network, their secondary devices, and most of their access credentials. Federation security arrested 7 saboteurs. 2 others died while resisting arrest with weapons. A final explosives team surrendered after discovering that every route to the summit sector had been sealed. The summit survived. Hundreds of delegates survived with it. Grit ended the night in veterinary care. Grit had smoke irritation, exhaustion, and aggravated bruising in the shoulder, but no permanent injury was expected. Brynn stayed with him. Rulvek understood why she did not come to see him. The understanding surprised him less than the absence did. He completed his incident report the next morning. He wrote slowly because pain medication dulled his concentration. The first version referred to Grit as an animal. Rulvek deleted the word. The second said working asset. He deleted that too. He started again. During an active security sweep, I struck an operational partner while that partner was correctly indicating explosive contamination on my equipment. My action was unnecessary, compromised trust within the joint team, and temporarily removed a useful detection capability during an ongoing threat. He read the paragraph twice, then submitted it. The disciplinary board did not excuse him. He received a formal reprimand. His authority over human working animal teams remained suspended until certification. A damaging notation entered his command record. He accepted all of it. Brynn read the statement 2 days later. She came to the medical ward with Grit. Grit walked normally again. Rulvek sat up. Brynn handed him a tablet. You wrote partner. Yes. You mean it? Rulvek looked at Grit. Yes. She nodded. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but something had moved between them. Grit sat beside her and looked at Rulvek with no apparent concern. Rulvek found the dog's lack of resentment almost unbearable. For now, that was enough. Chapter 16. Working status. The Federation review began before Rulvek returned to full duty. The Federation review remained narrow and practical. Rulvek was grateful. The legal question was practical. Federation security law had no clean category for a non-sapient animal performing essential operational work under a sapient handler. Agricultural animals had welfare standards, labor organisms had handling rules, and military law covered equipment and personnel. Grit fit none of those categories cleanly. The incident exposed a gap in Federation security law. The new classification proposed by the Joint Security Board was bonded working partner. Rulvek supported it. The term did not grant sapient status or pretend dogs were soldiers. It established handler authority, medical protection, limits on physical correction, and mandatory investigation when trained working animals signaled danger. Several Dameron officers objected to the new category. One told Rulvek privately that he had allowed human sentiment to rewrite security doctrine. Rulvek looked at his still-healing leg. The dog found a secondary bomb, exposed the precursor network, and located me after station systems lost my transponder. The officer shifted. Rulvek continued. If sentiment can do that reliably, we should study it. The classification passed. Rulvek completed mandatory working animal handling certification. He learned how to approach a working dog, how not to distract it, how to read basic stress signals, and when to defer to the handler. He hated the first week. By the second, he hated it less. By the third week, he understood why Brynn had laughed when he called dogs unpredictable. Dogs could be unpredictable. So were soldiers, commanders, and every system built around them. Rulvek did not write that in any report. Rulvek left the thought out of the report. Epilogue. Ask first. Months later, Rulvek attended a joint security exercise on Vantage Spire. Brynn was there, so was Grit. The dog had fully recovered. He saw Rulvek from across the training floor and lifted his head. Rulvek stopped several steps away. Once, hesitation around an animal would have embarrassed him. Now he looked at Brynn. May I? She studied him for a moment, then she nodded toward Grit. Ask him. Rulvek still found that formulation strange. Brynn showed him what she meant. Hold out your hand. Don't reach. Rulvek lowered his hand. He kept it still. Rulvek held the hand still and waited. Grit approached, sniffed his fingers, then stepped closer and leaned his shoulder against Rulvek's leg. Rulvek looked at Brynn, her expression finally softened. That means yes.